Yeah,
So
it's a little weird.
when you're talking times, and this has always been something that's like I've wondered about, when how much improvement is there based on, like, assuming that the like the like the work ethics of two swimmers are about the same, how much of that is like, is it down to height and just like physical, like, gifts, I guess, versus like in other sports, it's you can be smarter than another player, or you can like have a better 3-point shot if you're shorter, and you can like make a, like, kind of make a place for yourself in a sport, in other sports. But for swimming, is it just kind of based on, like, there's not really a way, at least that I've could think of, that there is to do that. um can you kind of like elaborate on how swimmers improve, and then like the ability of someone that you would say maybe like isn't so good, like, all right, have you seen somebody who you'd say like before, like, oh, they probably don't have the physical gifts or whatever, but like work really hard and like jump up like more to where you thought they would be? Or is it mostly just down to genetics and luck at that point, or luck of genetics, I guess?
Yeah, I that's a very that's a lot of stuff that I'm gonna try to compile into like one little like easy answer is, I mean, personally, like if we're just talking personally, I think if you spend enough time with someone, anyone can improve drastically. Now, if you're talking like two people like battling out, they have the same training schedule, et cetera, size, height, feet size, flexibility, all those things, all those factors are going to come into play. Um, it's the nature of all athletics, I think. If you're bigger, stronger, faster, and smarter. I mean, you mentioned smarter. That's one thing. It's like the longer the race goes, the smarter you need to be, I think. Just because you got to know, you got to control, like how's my pacing if I'm swimming the 4 IM, like am I pacing right? Am I doing my turns right? Um, is my stroke count right going into a wall? You gotta have some intelligence to it. So, um, I have seen many times, someone might be, average in the swim world. You could say, for a man, it's 6 foot, and for a woman, it's 5'7", 5'8", or something. I'm just throwing stuff out that I think would be average, um, height wise, and it's I mean, you can have average people come in, train them properly, teach them how to do it. And personally, I've seen some really great examples, actually one at UVA. So we have a guy named August Lamb, and he's a goofy kid. I hope he's watching this and laughing. But he's really, I mean, he's a good guy, and he worked his butt off. He came in as a walk on at UVA, and he had swam club. He had a background, I will say, which is helpful. um but he just worked his butt off. I mean, my god, he just he took the extra time. He did what he needed to do, and then some. And then he became our fastest 50 freestyler the year 2 years ago, I guess now. And then this past year, I mean, he crushed it again. I definitely think that he's going to continue improving. And I will say, in the sport of swimming, a lot of people are just like, oh, like, you know, the crazy, they're crazy. Why do they train so much? And, they're up at 5 a.m. swimming. And the reason for that is, you get up to train in something that you're not used to a lot. So when we're playing soccer, I'm going to keep using soccer because you're Mr.
Mhm.
Soccer. Sorry. Soccer and running and walking and jumping, those are things that come natural to people because that's what we do every day. You walk to work, you walk to
Mhm.
class, for example. Those are motions that are normal. Swimming is complete. I mean, you're going from this to, I'm sorry for people who are listening, you're going from like vertical to horizontal, and you're doing movements that are very unnatural. I mean, when was the last time you saw somebody walking around swimming breaststroke in the air to walk? Never. So if you put someone in the water for 4 hours a day, plus weightlifting an hour, plus dryland an hour, you do that 6 days a week, give or take, with hours and whatnot. You're going to see a lot of improvement. And I think that, biologically, yes, you want to get the kid who's, 6'6", 250, or a woman who's 6 foot and 165, and they're all pure muscle, and they've been swimming since they were 3 years old,
Mhm.
and have like a million age group records, and you want that, but it's like, I think it's kind of a little personal. Yeah, well, I wasn't the shortest guy either. Swimming wise, there's a great picture my dad has of me in the blocks at NCAA's, and it's like I'm 5'8", and then like the next guy's 6 foot, and then 6'2", and it goes up from there. And it's you're gonna have every now and then you're gonna have stories like that, and I think they're great. And I think that I never would put oh, like because they're you know X height, they're not going to be good. Because I think if you spend enough time with someone, you can make them good. You're going to have to work at it different ways and train them,
Mhm.
probably a little bit harder, and they're going to have a higher ceiling. But I think like, and I love our sport because swimming is just, it shows true athleticism. Like you just got to be so good at being uncomfortable, and not even just like physically uncomfortable, because I don't know how often you swim, but putting your head down in water and not breathing is not comfortable. But also it's just like you're horizontal doing weird motions. And so I think anybody can be trained. I've worked with Division 3 swimmers, and now I've worked with Olympian hopefuls and Olympians, and it's just like I've seen the differences. And if you asked me 2 years ago that question, I would have been like, oh yeah, like it got to be 6'6" and be gifted by God Almighty.
Mhm.
And it's just like that's not I wouldn't totally agree with that now.
Mm. The reason I ask is because, especially in soccer, you've got guys who are like super tiny. Messi is like 5'6", and then
Yeah.
Ronaldo's 6'2", or like even like Zlatan is like 6'4", and you can find spots for all of them, and they can all get to the same sort of like world class level. Where I feel like, I guess my question to you is like in swimming, to get to like, if you're like under the 6 foot mark, is like, is there a cap to like, yeah, you're probably not going to be an Olympian? Or like, I guess that's kind of what I was getting at. I feel like there's kind of a barrier, but again, like obviously I'm not a swimmer, so I don't know. But
Yeah, I don't know if there's like a
like
barrier per
like
se. I think
a cap to like the highest level.
I'd say the factor that caps you from the highest level is feel of the water. And I know that's a weird terminology. It's just, when you're swimming, you know, some people have a more natural feel for the water, and they can mold it, shape it, move it better than most people. And I think those people develop faster and therefore perform better and will continue, especially at like the highest level. Um, I think I've seen, I can't remember his name exactly, but I remember a long time ago, University of Georgia had a swimmer who was like 5'8" or something like that, and was like third at Olympic trials. I was there for a swim camp, and I remember the head coach Jack Bowerly brought him, and he talked to the group, and he was very short, but he was built. I mean, he was definitely built, but he just like he could move.
Mhm.
And it's just the feel. So the feel of the water is just like how well you can move and shape and work the water for you. So I'd say, I'd say, height is always going to be, if you're below 6 foot, it's going to be a heck of a lot harder, like a
Mhm.
lot harder. Um, or if you're below like 5'4" for a woman, like it's going to be a lot harder. But there are definitely examples of people who have done it. But I would
Yeah.
say, generally speaking, most people are taller. It's like, in any sport, like in basketball, you're gonna have
Sure.
like, you'll have every now and then you'll have one guy who comes down and is like blowing up the field. And I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head. Muggsy Bogues, I think, was pretty short. I think he was like
Yeah.
5'9" or something. Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
like you every now and then you'll have that. But being above 6 feet is
Hmm. I
that's
just asked
that's
because when you like watch a swim meet, it's like they have like, if you have the extra like 3 4 inches, like you don't have to do that extra stroke, or like that reach will
yeah.
get you
Hmm.
the touch that you need to like to win that extra like
Yep.
millisecond or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, because especially once you get up to those margin, like those levels, those margins are so fine.
Oh
It's
yeah.
like one like little things
One
could be the
100th can
difference.
separate
Yeah,
you. Yeah, seriously.
exactly.
And yeah, and I mean, that's always going to help you. Um, everybody knows the, Phelps race in '08 and the 100 fly where he
Mhm.
just barely out touched by .01. And it's just like, I don't know their heights, but I'd be curious to see if Phelps was like an inch taller or something like that, but I mean, he has a huge wingspan too. I mean, you
Yeah.
can look at wingspan, heck, I mean, you could be like, oh, what's their wingspan? Um, if you want a good example of that right now, like currently in the NCAA for women's sports, we have, at UVA, Lex Wenger is, our best breaststroker, and she's not super tall. If I had to guess, I don't know her height off the top of my head. Also, shout out to Lex. She's the best. Lex is maybe 5'6", 5'7". But I remember watching the 100 breaststroke with her, and then NC State has a girl, Sophie Hansen, and she's 6'1", she's tall. I don't know what her bio says, but it's not, her bio is incorrect. She's like 2 inches taller. She's very tall and she's very talented. And, Lex would always pull up to her. They'd hit the wall and turn. And Sophie would always be in front of her because she was taller. Like she'd
Hmm.
always hit the turn because she always had an extra inch. So yeah, I mean, having that extra inch is going to help you, but I would never discourage someone who wasn't at that height threshold.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
there are
of course
different
not.
ways to have speed. Yeah.
Yeah, of course not. It was more just a curiosity thing about once you like jump up to that like Olympian hopeful level, like
Mm-hmm.
is that something that you've noticed?